Hi there. Recently, one of my subscribers asked what kind of sources there are for earlier ancestors who are on the poorer side of the social spectrum, which, let's face it, were the vast majority of people. I'm often talking about the usefulness of probate records or land records for those ancestors who had land, wealth or property. But what about those of us whose ancestors did not have property, who were either just working to earn a basic living or who may have suffered from extreme poverty? It's a really good question. Of course, the main sources for all classes of society in the UK before the census are parish registers. But as we go further back in time, these can get a bit patchy and your ancestors may start to go missing, either because of the condition of the registers or absence of the registers, or because your ancestor came from somewhere else. In theory, parish registers start in 1538 by the order of Thomas Cromwell, and if you are lucky, your ancestors might have come from the parish where these registers have been kept in reasonably good condition from this date, if you are lucky, very lucky. The problem is that not many of these earlier registers have survived, or they may have been damaged or destroyed, either accidentally or by vandalism or war. Sometimes they're so faded that they are illegible, or the handwriting is really bad. Also, the order to start keeping these records was not always fully understood by the church incumbents, which is why some registers only seem to begin from Queen Elizabeth's time, rather than Henry VIII. So, if you cannot find your ancestors in the parish registers, and they're not likely to have left wills or land records, is that the end of your research? Well, not necessarily, though in some cases it might be. It mainly depends on whether your ancestors did something that had them come within the sights of the authorities. So you're not always going to find something, and I'm afraid that much of the time those poorer ancestors tend to fade into the mists of time. But there are some things you can do to make sure you've covered every possibility or unturned every stone. There are two main authorities under which poorer ancestors might turn up. These are court records, and the other are parish records other than the parish registers. Within these two areas of research, there are several different types and levels of documentation that you could come across. But I'm going to look at the most important sources you can use, and I will also go online and show you the best ways of searching for these. So first of all, court records. While the law court system can be fairly complicated, we can put it simply into these two strands under which you'll find the most common records. So first we have the civil courts, which dealt with mainly disputes and other minor civil matters, and under this you have the Court of Chancery from the 14th century onwards, dealing often with civil disputes and over land or probate, and will be in the form of a bill of complaint from the plaintiff and an answer from the defendant. Then there are the local civil courts, which dealt with other civil claims and small debts and various other disputes. Thirdly, there are the church courts, where the church had jurisdiction over the moral behaviour of the clergy and also dealt with moral crimes or conduct of their parishioners. On the other side, you have the criminal courts, which is probably where you're more likely to find the poorer end of society. These are the assize courts, which worked in circuits between county towns. They dealt with serious crimes such as homicide, theft and assault, and might have resulted in execution or transportation. The lesser courts are the quarter sessions, which dealt with less serious offences of lesser theft, vagrancy, etc. The parish records we can split into two main areas for our research. The first are settlements and removals. These have not survived for every parish, but they are certainly worth searching for, as they can provide detailed information about your ancestors if they can be found here. Under the Poor Law of 1601, parish relief to paupers was only allowed if the persons in question were living in their parish of legal settlement. So from 1662, people who wished to claim parish relief had to provide evidence of this, particularly if they had arrived in the parish from elsewhere. So they might make a statement saying that they maybe were born here or had other reasons for this parish to be where they were legally settled, how long they'd lived there, etc. If you find such records, the statements made by the applicant can provide detailed information about their family, their occupation, and where and when they had been born, and also often interesting information about their lives, the conditions they lived in, how much they had to eat, for example. If the family were not found to be eligible for parish relief in that parish, they would then be ordered to move back to the parish where they were legally entitled to relief. And these were called removal records, and they can also provide knowledge about the parish where a person was born, for example. The other records that come under parish records are apprenticeship records. These are a little step up from poor law records, as these, of course, are young lads who are starting an apprenticeship for a trade that they are then likely to work in for much of their lives and earn a living. These began in the 14th century, and if they have survived, the best place to search for these is Find My Past. They don't always give a lot of genealogical information, and sometimes just give the name of the apprentice and the master, but occasionally the apprenticeship record will name the father of the apprentice, which of course can be very useful. Sometimes the father actually is the master. But one other thing that can help is knowing that the usual age for a young man to start his apprenticeship was 17. So if you do find your ancestor in these records, you then have an approximate date of birth to look for. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to show you the best places to search for these records. My first port of call for these kinds of records will always be the National Archives. So let's just go through what we can do here. First of all, one of the things we can do at the National Archives is have a look at their search guides for particular records. So this is National Archives homepage, and if we're going to help with your research, just a good idea to just go down. Let's go to Family History, and then down the list on the left hand side here, see a list of basic different kinds of documents that are available. And I think if we go to courts, criminals, prisoners and litigants and click apply, then you'll get various guides, and I'm going to go to, here we are, criminal court cases, the assize courts from 1559 to 1971. And this guide will tell you basically all you need to know about these courts, the dates, the kinds of criminal cases that they involve themselves with. And also down at the bottom here, they also give you the reference numbers for each county and dates. But basically you could just use their basic
reference for the assize courts is the ASSI reference. So when we're searching, it's quite useful to look up what that reference is, so that when you're searching, if you only want to look at those particular records, you can use that reference in the search rather than doing a kind of blanket search for a surname, which might come up with so many documents that it's difficult to look at it. But anyway, there you are. If you want a really good detailed guide of different documents, then it's a very good idea to come to the National Archives and have a look at these, and they'll tell you basically what's available, where to find them, etc. So let's just go back to home and then search the catalogue. I always go to advanced search. Now, I had a quick look here earlier. Normally when I do these online searches, I search for my own family and specific lines of my family. But because we're looking at records that they're not always going to come up in, I'm doing a sort of more wide-ranging search here. Now, the search criteria for the National Archives, I find their search page, it's a little bit clunky. Because there's no search criteria for actual surnames. You're either searching for all of these words, exact word or phrase, or any of these words. So you can also put in words that you don't want to come up, so that can refine it down. And then you can put in reference numbers here for the types of document. And further down here, you can either put in a date range or a specific date, or you can just click one of these, which is mostly the centuries. So I'm just going to look for the surname Walker, which is it's one of my ancestral names, and it's a fairly common one. So I'm going to put that into exact word or phrase. If you have a name like John Walker, you can put that in. It'll come up with John Walker. But I'm just going to search for the one surname just to make sure I come up with a few possibilities here. And I'm going to, in any of these words, what I usually do here is if I'm looking for an ancestor in a particular parish, I'm probably putting that parish, and I might also put in other parishes nearby or where I know he's been, where he's living, where he was born, where he was married, etc., just in case they come up in any of those parishes. So what I'm going to do is put in Walker, and I'm just going to broadly put in Staffordshire, and then I'm going to go down here and put in ASSI for the assize records, and just see, let's just make a broad-ish date range there. Okay, there's nothing there, so I'm going to go back, take out Staffordshire. It may not mention Staffordshire. If I was looking for a particular parish, there we go. Let's have a look and see what's down here. So we've got northern and eastern. So the assize courts were organised in circuits. And they travelled around that particular circuit. So here we've got assize from the north and northeastern circuits. So this shows you the order of the different types of references that the documents come under. So we've got ASSI there, so that's records of justices of assize, jail delivery, etc. Division with that is the northern and northeastern circuits, etc. So criminal depositions and case papers, and then depositions described at item level. So we've got a Joseph Walker and a Richard Walker, dated 1747, and this is held by the National Archives at Kew. There's very little description. Sometimes with other documents you'll get quite a useful description of what the document is. In this case, the document is not available online, And if you look over here, you'll see it's not digitised and cannot be downloaded, so you can't actually order it from the website. What you can do is request a copy. So if you think you've found your ancestor, you can click on request a copy. And it's usually, it's down here, it's usually for a page check, it's £8.40. And then they will send you an estimate or the cost of copying the whole document. And sometimes you can just order part of a document if it only has the information you need on it. So that's how that works if you've never used the National Archives before. That's that. You probably, it's going to be the same with the assize records. You're probably going to have to request a copy, or the next step we can do is look at the actual County Record Office records. Now, in theory, the National Archives should cover both records held at the National Archives and records at county record offices. However, because I find the research criteria methods at the National Archives not brilliant, I usually also check the relevant County Record Office archives as well. And first of all, I've come to the family history section at Staffordshire Archives because it's worth having a look at. Each county record office tends to kind of do their own thing, and some of them have extra indexes, and there are family history societies and other sub-websites sometimes. Now, Staffordshire County Council has a very useful thing called the Staffordshire Names Indexes. If we go down here, we can see that they have a names index for apprentices, and also if we come over here, we've also got a calendar of prisoners from the quarter sessions, and we've got quarter sessions records over there. So that's very useful. And if we look at the menu here to select which you want to look at, let's have a look at the quarter sessions indictments, and you can just put in a surname. I'm going to use my surname bot this time and just leave. Those are the years in which you can search for these records, so I'm just going to leave that and see what comes up. So here we are. You see there are some bots that got into trouble. In the case of George Bot, he's actually a complainant, so he's the person complaining of the theft of a sheep. And this one is a complainant too, but all the others are defendants. So we've got, let's have a look at this one, John Bot, assault. So as you can see, the catalogue description gives you some information. He's from Leek, he's a labourer. His offence is assault in Leek, and the year is 1592. And again, you can order a copy of the record for £8. So this is very often the case with these records held either at the National Archives or the county record offices. They're not always going to be available online, and you will have to pay a small fee to get a copy of them. I've also come to the Warwickshire Record Office here, just to show you one of the other types of search you can do here. And all of the county record offices will have a page that includes an online catalogue that's searchable. And so if we click on that, they have various ones here. And interestingly, they have, at Warwickshire, they also have a section for calendars of prisoners. But we are going to look at Warwickshire's Past Unlocked and go to advanced search. You'll get some kind of similar type of search page where you can put in any text, or you can refine it to say with all the words, at least one of the words, without the words, etc. So I'm just going to again use the word surname bot here and just see what comes up. You can also search by document reference number if you were to know it, and title, I'm not going to use that. You can put in a date. I've put in here 1650 to 1700 just to see what comes up here. There's no specific area for searching for court records in particular, but what I did find was several, these are all mainly land records, as you can see, conveyances, lease, feoffments, but right at the top we have this very interesting one, petition of Thomas Bott. Let's have a look at that, because it's kind of unusual. It doesn't I suppose it probably comes under poor law records, but it's, as it says up here, it's a miscellaneous record. So this is why it's a really good idea when you're stumped, is to go to the County Record Office website and have a look and see what they've got, because you never quite know what's going to come up. And here we have petition of Thomas Bott of Morton Bagot to the justices for a pension because of disablement as a soldier during the Civil War. So that's really, really interesting. And again, I don't know whether you would get much more information by ordering it, but you could probably, if you took a note of the references, the document reference number, you could write to them. There's usually a page on the website where you can do orders of records and use that document reference number, or of course you can actually go to the County Record Office itself and look that up just to see if there's any further information on it. But that was quite interesting. I've just come back to the Staffordshire Record Office again, just to have a look at their online catalogue, which they call Gateway to the Past. And if we come down to search the catalogue, and this is how many of them look on the Record Office websites, and you usually go to Advanced Search. I've been looking to see if I can find a settlement record. It's very difficult to find these records without actually having a name. So if we just put in a name, Thomas, and if we go to Overseers of the Poor, just see what comes up here. Order of the Churchwardens and Overseers of the Poor of Pattingham. You can see the Q reference there, that comes under quarter sessions. So here we go. In this particular index reference, we actually have quite a good description. So it's order to the Churchwardens and Overseers of the Poor of Pattingham, informing them that Thomas Mills, his wife and family, were to be returned to Pattingham from Wolverhampton, unless the JPs, that's the Justice of the Peace, at the next sessions, could be given reasons why they should not be returned. So that might be quite interesting. You do a further search there to see if there was any statement by Thomas Mills to say why he should not be returned to the parish of Pattingham. So there's various bits and pieces here that come under Overseers of the Poor, not just settlement records, but interesting little records here. In order to pay the wife of Thomas Mayot, schoolmaster of Grindon, the sum of 1 shilling 6 per week, until her husband has sufficient scholars to teach. Oh dear. So there you go. So if you do searches for your ancestor's name or just your surname in a particular parish and just see what comes up, you can come up with some interesting things, not just criminal records or settlement records, but you just never quite know what might come up. So I'm going to come to Find My Past and just have a look at apprenticeship records. Now you can also search for apprenticeship records at the National Archives and the County Record Office's catalogues, but Find My Past also has a good index of apprenticeship records. So if we go to their homepage and enter search and then come down to education and work, and then on the left hand side you'll see the sub menu with apprentices at the top. They also have the workhouses and poor law down here, but I think they're probably going to be the more workhouses later records rather than earlier poor law records, but it's always worth having a look at that too. But let's have a look at apprentices. So again, I'm not going to search for any particular person. I am just going to put in a surname and see what comes up. But I'll try it. I'll put in 700 and then do a range of 40 years either way. That should give us a good range. We've got 52 results. So let's just put in Staffordshire. 15 results. That's a nice amount for us to look at. Right, so a lot of these, although I've put in Staffordshire, a lot of these are London apprenticeships. We've got Solomon Bott in Staffordshire. I like Solomon. Let's have a look at that. So you'll see they give you a transcript. There's no original record here, but they give you a full transcript here, which is quite useful. And this one, it's actually, Solomon Bott is the master here. So you will find that when you're searching for apprenticeships, sometimes it will be the master's name that comes up, but it gives you the full details of the amount of money paid, the place. The apprentice was Thomas Ball, and he came from Hoppus in Staffordshire, and it gives his father's name. The apprentice's father's name was John, so that would be John Ball. So that would be very useful if you are searching for Thomas Ball and trying to find out who his father was. So up here we've got the master's occupation, brass founder. So that would be what the young Thomas Ball would be learning about. Just go back to another one here. Let's have a look at a slightly earlier one. Again, it's the master's name, and this time a little bit more expensive. The apprentice is John Enso. Again, you've got the father's name, you've got the father's occupation, and the master is a wheelwright. Just see if I can find any actual Bott apprentices. Here we go. Again, we've got a Benjamin Bott, 1725, blacksmith. Bott, William, son of Benjamin, Stafford, Staffordshire, tallow chandler, to William Bott, blacksmith's company. So here what we've got is Benjamin Bott is the apprentice and his father is actually the master. And he's a tallow chandler, so making candles. Interesting, that's under the livery company of blacksmiths. But there you go. The transcripts on Find My Past give you all the details rather than you having to look at or order the original record. So apprenticeship records really useful. Let's just have one more. We've got a Samuel Bott brewer, Samuel, son of Samuel, who is a locksmith, to Edward Hopton Brewers Company. Doesn't surprise me at all if one of my families were working in breweries. But there you go. So one thing we know from this is that Samuel Bott, apprentice in 1700, was probably born in about 1683 because he would probably be around the age of 17. So there you go. Apprenticeship records can be very useful and very interesting. I hope that's not all sound a little too confusing. Basically, if you are looking for a direct ancestor, you've got a name and a parish or an area, county. Basically, what you need to do is go to the National Archives and the County Record Office online catalogue and search for that name. And those records should come up somewhere. But here's a couple more things that I like to do when I can't find somebody in these kinds of dates. First of all, one thing that you can do, if you can't find a specific ancestor in the records, you know the parish they lived in, or you know that they were probably born there or in the area, one thing you can do is look at that parish and see whether the family name was there before your ancestor was there. So it might give you an idea of whether his line actually continues in that parish, or whether he might have come, or she might have come from somewhere else. So if we go to search and just do search all records, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to search for my own surname again. So if you put in a surname, not the direct ancestor's name, but the surname, and you can use name variants as well if you like. I'm just going to not click that box at the moment. And we can put in a date range. So if your ancestor was born, say, in, I don't know, 1780, but you can't find his baptism, I would suggest something like putting a date in 1760 and doing a date range of a really good range of years, 40 years either way. And then we're going to put in the name of the parish. Now, some of my bot ancestors came from Alton in Staffordshire, so I'm going to put in Alton. And you can move the search radius up. That's one of the features of Find My Past I really like, is that you can search in the exact parish, or 5 miles or 10 miles around. Actually, there's quite a lot of results. I'm going to keep it to exact. And we've got 216 results. So we can have a look and see at what records there are. You can also see on the left, this menu, whether there are any other type of records, which there are not here. They're all birth, marriage and death. If I put in an earlier range, so 1760 to 40 years would take us back to 1720. If we go to 1680 and do another 40 years, we still got a lot of records, 120. So I can see by this that the Bott family, or at least branches of the Bott family, were living in Alton at this period. And again, though, they are all birth, marriage and death, no other records. So that's one way of looking to see, and this is particularly useful, of course, if you have an unusual surname. It doesn't quite work so well if your name is Smith, because there could be several Smith families living in the same parish. But it just goes to show this family in particular. I can take it back. Actually, I don't need to go back to that. I can take it back even further. 100. See, let's even go back to 1600. See what comes up. 106. 1560. 35. So it's getting a bit less, but we can see that there were Botts living in this parish from much earlier times than I've been able to find. So it could be, if you're missing an ancestor, it could be a sign that somewhere in here there is a line going back. Now, one other way of looking at patterns within the family and seeing where the families are within that parish is by browsing the register. You can do this really well on Ancestry. So what we're going to do is search the baptism, marriage and burial records for a particular parish with the surname that you're looking for. So let's go to, we're going to go down to the card catalogue first, and then we're just looking at birth, marriage and death. Then we want to come down to United Kingdom, England. I'm going to look at Warwickshire in this case, as the Staffordshire earlier records are not particularly well covered on Ancestry. What we want are baptisms and marriages. We don't want the select ones. They are usually just the IGI indexes. We want the original records to browse. Sometimes you might have to go onto the second page. There we go. Church of England, baptisms, marriages and burials. From 1535, that's interesting, considering they started in 1538. I don't quite know how that happened, but then you can choose a parish. Not all parishes will be included, but there are a good coverage on Ancestry. Let's go to Treddington. That's a nice little village just nearby here. So you can see then you've got a date range. So let's go to 1675 to 1699. And here you will see you go straight to the original records, which you can then just go through and search for the surname. The reason I'm doing this rather than looking at the surname in the indexes I did with Find My Past is, for one thing, you'll find the surnames where they've been mistranscribed. If you can read the writing rules, this is quite a difficult one, I must say. It's a long, lengthy process, but you can find every instance of your surname for a particular period. You can then work out the families. I like to do this on a large piece of paper. Once I've got a list of all the names from your family, you can then work out little family trees and work out the different family units and descendants. It's not quite as easy as it sounds, but it's quite a useful exercise to see what families were in the parish for the period, say, up to when your ancestor was living there, the one you can't find. And then you can look for naming patterns and see kind of basically which family he may have belonged to and whether there is, going further back, a family member where all those names come from. It's not a way always of really finding out who your ancestors' parents were, but it can give you an idea of how far back the family goes in a parish, and sometimes it can give you an idea of where his family came from. If you look at naming patterns, sometimes you can see the names that have come up in your ancestors' families time and time again. It can give you an idea of which family he might belong to. As I say, it's quite a lengthy task. It's not a particularly easy task, but I actually quite like doing that, and this one happens to be in Latin. As you can see, it's Thomas Filius, Toma et Margery. So that's Thomas, son of. You can learn basic Latin for genealogists, knowing that Filius is son of and Filia is daughter of, etc. So that's not too much of a problem in parish registers. But that's just something I might do from time to time, if I have the time, is browse through the registers and just get a picture of all the families with that surname. And it can help Sometimes it doesn't, but it can just give you an idea of which family your ancestor came from.
I hope that's been useful to you. As I said before, you may not find anything, but it's always worth searching for these records, because if you do find something, that can just be the very thing that can take you back to the next generation at least. And even if you cannot find the direct ancestor, if your surname is unusual enough, sometimes you can find enough going back in the parish. If the family name is there in the parish, but your direct ancestor is missing, sometimes you can just follow that trail back and have at least some idea that these people were your ancestors, and still follow that line back to a certain extent. But always, when you're recording your searches, never write those things down as certain. Always make sure that it's noted that there is a missing ancestor, and any further research is conjecture. So I do hope that's helped a little. I do know that as you go further back in records, handwriting can be a problem, and if you find records in Latin, that's even more of a problem. But I don't have enough time in this video to have a look, and I might have a look at that in another video. So I hope this has helped, and do write your comments and questions in the comment section, and I will attempt to answer any further questions, either in the comments or in a separate video. Please do subscribe. If you have any other questions about tracing ancestors in the UK, I'm always happy to try and help and create further videos to answer your questions. So, see you again soon. Bye for now.